Life Issues with Vicky Gibbens on UCB One.
Welcome to another Life Issues here on UCB. I'm Vicky Gibbens, asking you today, what time does your day start and end? Maybe you're thinking it's like most people, I work a 9 till 5 job, and if that's the case, well, how often do you think about those who are heading off to work just as maybe you're heading off to the land of Nod? The nighttime economy is our focus today. It is all about what? Antisocial behaviour, debauchery, or is there perhaps a reason parents give children a curfew? Maybe, though, there is also a place for the message of Jesus to be shared. To help me unpack that thought a bit further, I'm joined by Carolyn Skinner and Ellie Barrett from Third Space Ministries. And whilst we're chatting today, do go online, have a look at their website, thirdSpaceMinistries.co.uk. Now, Carolyn and Ellie, we should say from the start, you've got quite different roles. So, Carolyn, you are the founder of Third Space Ministries. What is the aim and the heart behind that?
So, Third Space Ministries, our aim is to demonstrate the love of God in the third spaces of society. So, sociologists say that there are 3 spaces in society. The first place is home, second place is work, and the third spaces are places that people go to outside of home and work to relax and switch off and have fun and let their guard down a bit. So for us, we would see that as the leisure industry. So we would be in gyms and pubs and clubs and areas of sport and music and nightlife. And we go in with teams sort of doing mission, we go in with teams doing chaplaincy, and we just often demonstrate the ministry of presence through what we do as well.
Since you started the ministry, just how much need is there?
Oh, it's huge. Our vision is far bigger than who we are, which makes me hold on to the fact that I think it's God's vision. So yes, there's so much need out there, and there are so many third spaces where I think if you just have individuals with intentionality in those places, so much could open up. And lots of the industries where we find ourselves are the sorts of places more of spiritual poverty than necessarily physical. Some of the industries look quite glossy, but actually the spiritual searching and spiritual hunger is immense if you just begin to scratch beneath the surface and draw out some of those issues for people. So the need is huge. So we're just seeking to follow God's lead as to whatever might be next.
We're also joined by Ellie Barrett, as I say. Ellie, your role very much is growing at the moment. Tell us just an overview, because I know you're going to be sharing lots of stories with us.
So I'm the Night Life Ministries Assistant for Third Space, and really what that means is just helping my colleague Lou to go into all the different places that we go into and coordinate the different volunteers that we have. So we visit various nightclubs, we visit strip clubs, we also do various prayer walks and things like that. And so the role is really equipping people to do that and helping to create an opportunity for Christians to be in places that are part of the nightlife economy, and also just helping to educate Christians and help them to see where the place is for us to step into those industries and celebrate what God is doing in them.
So how did you first of all come across Third Space Ministries?
So I got in contact with Lou, who I work with, who heads up the Night Life Ministries for Third Space, and she had done a lot of work in Ibiza with the charity that we've worked with out there, and I basically got in contact with her because I heard that she was doing ministry kind of stuff as a Christian going into nightclubs, and I've always wanted to do that in London, but as myself, not knowing anyone else, didn't really know what my place would be for that. How do you just go into a nightclub and be a Christian presence? And so I was just really excited to connect with her, and just through that the relationship's just grown over time, and we found lots of different ways to be connected and start different projects, which has been really exciting.
So we've mentioned a few different places already. We've mentioned pubs, clubs. What else is making up the nighttime economy?
Oh, absolutely anything and everything. Anything to do with the world of leisure and entertainment. It's huge and it's really growing. So anything from a night out in a bar or a restaurant to going to see a show, a theatre. Yes, all sorts of things. People will do their socialising, they'll run their errands at night time, they'll do all sorts of different things. And Yeah, and I think maybe, sense of increasingly longer working days. People are staying out longer in the evening to do their sort of socialising and catching up as well. That it encompasses so many different avenues.
It's so interesting because we're at a time where there's a lot of attention on the nighttime economy, whether it's going to continue to grow, whether things are going to restrict it as well. Do you think it stems from the way that society has changed so much towards a 24/7 society? I mean, we know places like New York, they just never sleep, but that's been going on for a while. But we've kind of adopted it here as well in the UK.
Yeah, we have. And we've definitely seen a shift. I think we've seen variations of how the landscape has changed, with certain things declining and other things increasing. So some of the areas that would have declined, there's quite a high percentage of clubs and pubs that have closed down. And I would say that the attitude towards binge drinking has changed as well, and the way people approach nightlife. But also, so many more people work night shifts these days as well. And I think particularly there's more than 3 million people in Britain work night shifts. So that's just changed the landscape. And 24-hour tube, particularly in London, all those things have begun to shift and draw more attention to it.
The NHS staff, because you've got hundreds, thousands of staff working over the night. Ellie, what about, you must be a fairly night owl. Are you okay? Because, I mean, Carolyn was talking there about working shift patterns. Would you describe yourself as a night owl?
I'm definitely naturally a nighttime person. I know through different stages of my life when I've had schedules where I need to be up early, I've definitely struggled. And for me, it's very natural to just stay up late and then have a lie-in. And so whether it's through me just wanting to go out and have fun, or whether it's through this ministry, I just really enjoy being able to enjoy that part of the day, really, and make the most of it.
Because it can be challenging, actually, for people involved in the nighttime economy. Those working shift hours can really change and mess up your body clock as well. That's another factor.
Yeah, definitely. I know that from spending some time in places like Ibiza where everyone's nocturnal and you spend a lot of time awake at night and then sleeping during the day, coming back and trying to adjust has been a big adjustment. And then even in London, when you've done a night shift and then you're going back to having to get up in the day, it can really take it out of you, but it's definitely worth it.
So nighttime economy, just the name itself, do you think we expect it to be a more permissive culture? The fact that it's in the dark, is there less accountability for individuals that are enjoying the benefits of a nighttime economy?
I guess that's hard to say. There's so much positivity that the nighttime economy brings. It's obviously a massive boost to our economy financially. But I can see why some people would associate certain things with it as well. And it is true that statistically there are certain crimes that would only take place at night, usually under the influence of alcohol. But that's just it's weighing up the two things together, really, isn't it? And I think there has been a change, and there has been a reduction of crime at night when you've got the safeguarding things in place. And I think a lot of people would still say that they feel very safe travelling around cities at night, particularly if there's a stronger presence of people in official capacities, whether that's police or street pastors, or I guess the vibrancy and the busyness almost makes you feel safer because you know that there's lots more people around and that kind of thing. So yes, there are definitely different ways of looking at it, and some people would perhaps see it as a bit of a licence of that permissive culture, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way at all.
And Ellie, from your experience, who have you met enjoying the nighttime economy?
I mean, such a wide array of people, I would say. I think it can often seem as though the nightlife economy, when you hear those words, you think of a certain type of person or a certain demographic, like students, for example. But actually on a night out, if you're going into a club, you could meet someone who is studying at university, or you could meet someone that's working in medicine, or you could meet a teacher. people of all different ages and life experiences and backgrounds, and so it's actually a place where a lot of different people come together, and it's a really good place where you can meet a lot of different people, which is really lovely.
Well, today our Life Issues on UCB has been about finding out what, first of all, the nighttime economy is and who is involved in it. My guests are Carolyn Skinner, the founder of Third Space Ministries, along with Ellie Barrett as well. So professionals are working in the nighttime economy. They're trying to carve out a career, but often, unfortunately, we have headlines made by those who perhaps are enjoying the benefits of a nighttime economy. The headlines being the negative impression. Describe some of the most common problems that you would come across.
I think definitely alcohol and drugs and the things that can lead to is something that instantly comes to people's mind when you talk about the nightlife economy, and there certainly can be a lot of issues that come from those things, and so that is a really common thing that people's minds jump to. But I think as well there's so much more in the industry than those things, and people's attitudes towards those things are changing, and that does mean that you can actually experience the nightlife economy without encountering problems to do with those things, or even if those things are around, you can enjoy the nightlife economy without taking drugs or drinking alcohol.
What about the noise as well?
Yeah, the noise as well, definitely. And there have been a lot of laws and different things that have changed over the years with that to try and help noise, because it has been a problem for residents, and as well what can be caused because of alcohol.
Dress code when you're out in some of these venues, and so often we particularly talk about females, scantily clad females being easy targets because of what they're wearing. Do you think that reinforces that message, or do you think actually this is groups of women out on a night just wanting to celebrate being feminine?
It's something which can become an issue of personal preference. I know that when I've seen a lot of young girls dressed in such a way that's, I don't know, perhaps particularly provocative, I just see that more as an identity issue for them, which just causes my heart to go out to them more. Everyone has a right to wear exactly what they want to, but what I see beyond, we try to see beyond the surface level, and I think whatever people are presenting externally, we try to look at what is going on in deeper ways than that. So if we're thinking particularly about clothing issues, yes, it's a personal preference what you choose to wear, and sometimes I look at them in the winter and think, oh my goodness, you must be freezing. But yeah, sometimes it is speaking of a deeper issue. Sometimes, other times it's just people dressed up because they like to look good and go out. But I think we would train our teams particularly to be looking for those deeper issues that are presented by what we see on the surface.
Do you find those deeper issues do come out of an evening?
Yeah, definitely. I think that in leisure industries, and particularly at night time, people tend to have their walls that they'd normally have up in the daytime a bit more relaxed, and so it's actually just a really great opportunity to be able to chat with people and help them to explore those deeper issues that maybe they wouldn't have properly thought about themselves and definitely wouldn't chat to a stranger about. But we see so many opportunities of just being able to chat things through with people and even just help them to think them through themselves, as well as offering support or a pastoral conversation.
Is it because quite frequently alcohol has taken the edge off, so perhaps they're more free-flowing in what they're willing to offer?
Yeah, it definitely can be. I'd say it's either that or just the fact that they're out having a good time, feeling more relaxed. If they have issues in their life that they're worried about, often when they're coming on a night out or doing something fun, it can help them to feel a lot more carefree and separated from those things, which I think can really just help people to open up a bit more about those things.
What about the headlines which are often created around, got those kind of drunk tanks, people sobering up, they've gone to the point of becoming unconscious with getting drunk? Is that as regular as the headlines make it sound?
I would personally say that it isn't. Even in the few years that I've been working in London in the clubs that we've been working in, we have seen quite a dramatic change actually in the types of problems we encounter, and we've really gone from having our night out being filled with sick buckets and helping people and sitting on the ground waiting for someone to sober up and just loving them in that moment and reassuring friends, and that's been the majority of what we've done, to now where actually it's more about celebrating with people and chatting with people and praying with people. And while we do occasionally see that still, and it is still definitely a part of the culture, we've seen that it has reduced in the past few years.
I'd agree with that. It has so changed, whether that's just the areas that we work in, but I think we would have seen it in other places as well. Yeah. And there are certain things which would attract that a little bit more. So A-level results night, and the more student-focused environments, perhaps. But a lot more people now would be just going out for a good night out to enjoy some live music somewhere, maybe have a cocktail or two, but they're not going out for the purpose of binge drinking. They're going out to connect with people. So I think maturity brings that as well. So I think, I'd agree, we've definitely seen a shift.
You said about celebrating exam results, or at least the end of exams. Of course, somewhere like Newquay was always known, wasn't it, for young people going post GCSEs or indeed A-levels, going in celebrating. It was a town that was kind of accessible. But even somewhere like there has actually changed the way that they handle that environment. What do you think's caused it? Is it public health messaging? Is it young people actually becoming more mature, taking responsibility, choosing a different path?
Yeah, probably a little bit of a mixture of both. I mean, it does still go on. It's not saying we don't come across pockets of that sort of behaviour, but it definitely has reduced. And some of that as well, I would say, would be the responsibility of the towns, that they've taken greater control in that sense. So the whole push with the nighttime economy has been that towns and cities now have a standard to achieve. There's this thing called purple flags, where it's an accreditation system, so standards that you have to reach to have achieved a purple flag, just like it's...
So this is like blue flags on a beach?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Because I've never come across this before.
No, so it's the same where that you've got a safe, clean beach, is a blue flag beach. For standards for nighttime, cities and towns can achieve the blue flag status. So there'd be certain criteria that they would need to meet, such as thinking through transport and safety, well-being, making sure there's a good variety of entertainment around. You can find out the main set of criteria, but there would be, I think it's about, in the whole of the UK, is about 75 purple flag towns and cities. So the fact that they're being much more intentional in putting those things in place, I would say would help with those, what had previously been known as the pockets of extreme antisocial behaviour. So I'd see that from that perspective. Yeah. So
70 towns, so we've got a little bit of a way to go.
We have got a way to go.
For more towns to get those purple flags. But I guess the reality is it's going to hit your local economy, it's going to hit house prices if you've got a bad reputation because of antisocial behaviour and some of the other factors connected like we've been discussing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a boost. Nighttime economy brings in about £70 billion, which is amazing. But yes, weighing that up with some of the other things that it brings. So yes, towns and cities will really be doing their best to make sure that there's things in place. And that's where the volunteer groups, such as ourselves and street pastors and street angels, where they're just like gold dust for local councils to have that extra support, extra eyes and ears and additional welfare, really makes a difference.
Well, let's go on to unpack that a little bit further. This is UCB. If you're just joining us, it's Life Issues, and I'm Vicky Gibbens, joined by Carolyn Skinner and Ellie Barrett from Third Space Ministries, as we look at, well, how relevant is the gospel message to those who work in the nighttime economy? Carolyn, you were saying there, volunteers are critical then, they're crucial to actually being a part of the outreach. But I would ask, from a Christian perspective, why should someone, whether they are volunteering, whether it's a paid position, take responsibility when perhaps it looks like individuals, if they are getting drunk, aren't taking ownership over their own life? Why should they put their personal safety, if you like, at risk?
Well, we would never advise anyone to put their personal safety at risk. We always be very clear about that. But it is important to be involved because people are people who need to be loved. And again, it's about going beyond the surface level. So for us, it's not necessarily about coming in to judge the antisocial behaviour and do what we can to stop it. It's about being Jesus in the midst of the antisocial behaviour. So often, if our team have sat with people in a nightclub, it's very easy because they've been behaving in an antisocial way, they've become intoxicated and they've been sent to our team. And it would be very easy for the average person to be very dismissive of that person because they're noisy and they're obnoxious and they're, coming out with all sorts of things. But when you sit with them long enough to get beneath that, whether it's someone on the street or in a club or wherever, you realise that they're probably like that night because, and these are true stories, because they've just come from their best friend's funeral that day or they've just had an abortion that week. And it's all coming out in this form. And so I think Jesus is in those places. He's in them already. And we talk about when we go into those places, we enhance his presence. It's the Message version of Matthew 5 about the salt and light, about the God colours and the God flavours. We bring out the God colours, we bring out the God flavours in an environment where maybe there's not been an intentional Christian presence before, where people perhaps are sometimes literally running to escape from God, and then we're there and it's like, hello, surprise!
You can't get away.
You can't get away from Jesus. But when you sit with someone long enough and in their mess, I mean, isn't that what Jesus did for us? He came and sat with us in our mess to draw alongside us and to offer us hope and transformation. And that's what we seek to do. So in many ways, we view it as our act of worship.
Ellie, I have to say, I think one of your giftings must be to be able to hold a sick bucket, because I don't know that I could personally do that. I think I may be joining in the sick bucket. But tell me a bit about, for you then, Carolyn was saying there, Jesus is with us in the mess. What individuals have you come across that you've been able to be there, to be the salt and the light in that mess?
So there's such a variation of people that you end up meeting, but often it can just be someone like Carolyn was describing who's drunk too much, they've maybe had a hard day or a hard week, or maybe they've just got a bit carried away celebrating whatever it is, and they've just gotten themselves into a state where they're being sick or they're not being social enough to be able to be in the club anymore, and they just need some time to sober up, to be sat with, and to have a safe environment to do that in. And so often what it can involve is just sitting with that individual, holding a sick bucket for them, letting them know that they're safe, that they're loved, that we're there to just make sure that they're okay. And there's been so many people that we've been able to help like that who have started almost hostile towards us, not knowing who we are or what we're doing, and then as time goes on and we've demonstrated that we're there for them and we're there to love them, they've just really been able to open up and feel more safe. And it's just a privilege to be able to sit with them and like Carolyn was saying, just be Jesus for them, act as though Jesus would if he was in that situation.
Have your own preconceptions been challenged as you've done more of this ministry?
I think the main preconception that has been challenged for me is just the extent to which Jesus really is in these places. I think before getting involved, certainly for me, ever since being in the nightlife industry, I've always thought, wow, Christians should be in this industry, Christians should be showing that Jesus loves people wherever they're at, but I don't think I realised the extent to which Jesus is already in those places. For me, it was very much I must go in to show that. But as we've gone more and more into different places and encountered different situations, it's just become so clear that actually Jesus is already working in these places and doing so much already, and it's just waiting for us to join in with what he's doing.
Carolyn said your personal safety must never be put at risk as well. I imagine, do you get training around this before you go in? Because you're never on your own, are you?
Yeah, we have a lot of training. We get volunteers that join our teams to do anything between a 4-hour training or a full day, and in that we cover loads of different things to do with how to interact with people, the reasons why we're doing it and the love message behind it, but also a load of practical things like never being alone, always being in pairs, keeping the team up to date with where you are, all different things like that, as well as some safeguarding situations that you might come across and how to handle those as well.
What about at the end of a night as well? If you have been with some individuals who clearly are doing life tough, they've been through trauma of the day or in the months gone by, what about your own personal journey and like debriefing afterwards?
Definitely, debriefing is something that's really important to us. For those of us that do it regularly, or even for a volunteer that's come for the first time, being able to just sit afterwards and share stories and just explain how the night's gone, how it's made us feel, and then being able to pray through that and ask Jesus to come and take those things from us is a really important part of what we do.
Do you ever see the same people, or is it always every night's a different person, a different face, a different story?
It does depend on the club that we go into. So some of the nightclubs we go into, there's a lot of tourists, a lot of people just out on a night out, and so we'd only see them once. But there's also staff and security and other people in those places that we'd then see on a regular basis each time we go in, which is really good.
So the staff, the security, the people that you've seen quite regularly, what do they make of what you're doing?
Definitely in some of the places when we've first gone in, they've been slightly suspicious or not really knowing why we're there, I think because of the preconception that if a Christian's going to go into a place, it's to, you know, bring the Bible and explain something to someone. But over time, as you get to know these people and you're there with an agenda to just love and be a support, I think you build up a trust and a reputation, and actually then you're met with so much warmth. I know that when we go into some of the clubs, we always bring baked treats with us for the staff, and as soon as we walk in,
to have neglected those today, Ellie. Where's the baked treats?
We should have brought you a brownie so you could experience it firsthand. But yeah, there's definitely such an excitement and a warmth when we go into them now, which is really good.
Carolyn, I wanted to ask you about the name as well. So, Club Angels. Does that not give them the impression that as a Christian we've got it all sorted, we're angelic and we can sort your mess out?
I don't think so. I mean, we actually didn't come up with that name, I have to say. There have been other Club Angels. We're not unique. But we've been the ones that I think have been the most active in our area. But I think people find a sort of bit of a novelty factor about that. So when we go into festivals, we're festival angels. And there's something fun about it as well. And people have such an interest in the spiritual. So even the name Angel, people are quite curious about that. So we've always been received really, really well. And it has to be said that the spiritual response is immense, and there's some antisocial behaviour that comes with nighttime economy, but there is so much to be celebrated, and there's so much good, and there's so much creativity and artistic expression and skills that are being displayed in all these environments, but also so much joy and life and spiritual hunger. I mean, the number of people that we pray for, we work in nightclubs, festivals, with DJs, in strip clubs, and in all of those areas, there's such a hunger for prayer. So there's a queue of people.
What's the curiosity? What would they be like asking? What are they searching for?
A whole variety of things, really. A lot of the time, if we say, is there anything that we can pray for you? It might be prayers for their future, or for people that they know who are sick. But often it is just when we begin to unpack some of the brokenness, some of the identity issues, when we can sit with someone long enough for that then we can just pray a sense of into their identity. We talk a lot about drawing out people's potential and affirming them and speaking truth over them. And when we can pray that with them, it's incredibly powerful. And we love praying with people in the moment, because you're inviting the Holy Spirit to come and do something. And people always, there's often a sense of, oh wow, I feel at peace now, or wow, I sense something there. And but there is definitely a lot of interest in prayer. I don't know if there's any more sort of stories of prayer. You've probably got some more recent ones, Ellie.
Yeah, so one that really comes to mind is we were on a night out with a few of the team, and there was a group of guys that came over to our banner. We have a banner that we normally put at the front of the clubs, just so people can come and have a safe conversation. And this group of guys came up, definitely from what we could tell, with the ambition of poking a bit of fun, being a bit silly, asking why Christians were in a club, that sort of thing, and with no external obvious desire from our part to actually talk about Christian issues or have a real conversation. But we just had some fun with them, chatted with them, helped to explain why we were there, and just through that conversation just were able to say, well, is there anything we can pray for you for? Which was met with surprise, a few laughs, a bit of joking around. Obviously a group of guys on a night out were probably a bit taken aback by the offer for prayer in a nightclub, but one of them said, yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. Can you pray that I'd meet a nice girl tonight? And so we were like, well, of course we can pray that you would find like a girl that's right for you and that you'd find love in your life. That's fine, and prayed for that. And I think they were just so surprised by our willingness to pray and take what they were saying seriously, that in the end we ended up being able to pray as a group, and some of them really shared some deeper issues in their life. I think we prayed for one of their mums that was sick, and just things like that, and a real depth to the conversation just came in that moment. And it was so exciting to just pray for them in a group and demonstrate that even in the fun and the lightheartedness of a night out, Jesus can still move.
It's interesting from what you say, often as human beings it is bravado, isn't it? And actually there's an awful lot going on underneath. Something you've both repeatedly said is the fact it's taking the time to just sit with someone and in those moments actually just being ears almost for whatever's going on for that situation. Do you think that is something that is lacking so much, whether it's daytime or nighttime in people's lives?
Absolutely. We talk a lot about the ministry of presence, and I think we live in a culture of quick fixes and instant answers, and we want to see solutions. And even in the church we are straight away looking for what's the fruit, where are the salvations, and we have to be reminded we can't get there straight away. I mean, it's a move of the Holy Spirit anyway, but there's such a build-up of journeying with people. And I think this is why we get invited back again and again, and why we get recommended. Not just us, street pastors, street angels, all sorts of other people that work in nighttime economy from Christian volunteering perspective, is because we take the time to listen. We come across as safe people, non-judgmental. There might be times where we actually do just need to hold back, bite our tongue a little bit. We want to say more, but actually now's not the right time, to allow people to express things from where they're coming from. And I think that definitely creates such an openness, such a sense of trust.
It's what Jesus did though, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And we really, in everything we do, even if we only encounter someone for 15 minutes one night and never see them again, we try to make it as personal as possible. We ask their names, we try to speak affirmation over them, we ask about their lives, and we offer to pray. So we will bring in the spiritual and the that Jesus loves them and who they are and the identity issues, but through their conversations, rather than, hello, can we give you a tract? That's just not that's not if working for that context, that setting. It is such a privilege, and I think that gentle approach is where the favour comes and where doors stay open for us, which then means that, okay, we might not see things as instantly, but we then have the privilege of being a regular presence, and through that we can see forms of fruit and transformation that come from the ministry of presence that is developed over time. And in a society where, say, day or night, everyone is so busy and so rushed and so often can be judgmental, and it's so what gets presented on the surface level and the outside and all of that. So to have Christians in whatever sphere of life to go slow enough and to ask God to see people with his eyes just opens up a whole host of opportunities, I believe.
Well, here on UCB, we are discussing in Life Issues the nighttime economy, and to help us unpack it, my guests are Carolyn Skinner and Ellie Barrett from Third Space Ministries. What about the future of the nighttime economy? I mean, society at the moment, do you not think some of us are reaching burnout point because we're living in a 24/7 society, and now we're even talking about rethinking, a 5-day working week? Will the nighttime economy continue, do you think?
That's an interesting one. You're right. We are a society that burns out far quicker than ever before, I think, because there's so many options for what to do with life, and working hours are so long, and the nighttime economy can be seen as an antidote to that it's a place of rest and relaxation. It's where you go to relax and to switch off, and so that it can provide a healthy balance in providing the downtime. So it depends how you view it. Obviously, if you're working in the nighttime economy, it just adds to the hours that you do and the shift patterns and things like that. So that there definitely are two ways of looking at it. It will be interesting to observe it over coming years, in the sense of, as I said, we've seen some decline, and definitely a change in landscape. So maybe decline in some pubs and clubs in some areas, but then in the other extreme, an investment that's going into it. So it could be something that booms. But I think with more towns and cities approaching the Purple Flag accreditation, so that they can meet these particular standards, so that they can provide safe, fun, positive nights out, I think that will be something that becomes increasingly attractive. I don't think it's going to slow down anytime soon, in the sense of people even just doing their night shifts, and that's increasing the number of people that are working at night. So that side of things I can see will be growing ever more, but who knows how the landscape will change.
And Ellie, as someone who has volunteered, if anyone's listening today, they might think, particularly with you, we've been chatting about being in, whether it's a lap dancing club environment or just a normal music club environment, they may have perceptions, well, I can't go and volunteer, I'm not the right age, I don't have any life experience with those kind of situations. What would you say to them?
I think I would just say go for it. If you're seeing a particular industry or type of place and you're feeling like, wow, I'd really love to volunteer in that, just find someone who knows about it, whether it's through contacting us on the website or whether it's through finding street pastors or someone in the area. Just be finding someone to come alongside who can champion you in that, because I know for me, definitely with some of the places that we're going into, before I started working in this industry, I definitely wouldn't have said I was equipped or knew what it could look like. But actually, as you just step in, it's actually a lot more easy and fun than you would think it, and you can really just learn on the go with a lot of it as well, once that you've done the safety training and things like that.
From what you've described, you've been extremely upbeat. Have there been any major challenges, anything that you've personally been challenged by along the way?
I think it can sometimes be challenging if it's a long night, there's a lot of people to help. It can be very tiring, it can be very difficult, especially if you're dealing with people that are being a bit antisocial, that kind of thing. But I think that's where you really just have to rely on Jesus, and knowing that he's with you just does help, and knowing you can rely on him for energy. I know I've done nights countless times where at the start of the night I've been feeling tired, maybe I've worked all day, and just the last thing I want to do is go to a club. I just want to go to bed. But in those times, being able to just say, okay, Jesus, like, help me please, I'm doing this for you, really does help. And then I'll end the night on a high, having had loads of energy. And so knowing that he's there to provide for your needs really gets you through.
And what about praying for all the different bodies that we haven't perhaps talked about, the police, the emergency services, all those connected with, whether it be a taxi or a bus that people are catching? How can we be praying for them as they work and continue to be a part of the nighttime economy?
Yeah, a friend of ours actually just recently hosted a prayer breakfast for praying for people in the industry, particularly, different times of the year where it might be busy. So maybe consider, as a local church, could you host a prayer evening or a prayer breakfast, and contact people in your area who work night shifts or who are street pastors or who work in bars and things like that, and ask them for how can we pray for you, and gather the church together to pray specifically for nighttime economy.
It's a really good point, because church, Carolyn, is at 10:30 on a Sunday morning. Doing church at other times of the day.
I know, exactly. And it's just that awareness, because people that work night shifts or work in the nighttime economy cannot often get to a church on a Sunday morning, and so it's so easy for them to feel alienated or forgotten, or that people can think they're backsliding because they haven't made it. So to try to find ways to include them and to know that they are being prayed for, just because they can't fit the hours that the church meets at, I think that's a really, really important message, to show that they're not forgotten. We do care about their needs, and ask them specifically what prayer requests they need.
Do you think, as a community, as a church community, more understanding as well? Because I know I work shifts, and for anyone that hasn't perhaps worked a shift pattern, there's not always full understanding of what that entails in life and how life needs to be adapted.
Yeah, absolutely. I think increased understanding is required, and it's easy for us to make assumptions or pass judgments when we haven't actually been in those shoes before. Or for even, sometimes some Christians in churches would say to others, well, if you can't get to church on Sunday morning, perhaps you shouldn't be in that job. I think, no, surely, there are industries where actually God wants you in that job, because you might be the only Christian. We find that with the DJs that we work with. Churches have said, oh, shouldn't you come out of that? Shouldn't you be stopping DJing as a Christian? But actually, we need more Christians in that industry. So we just need to then think about how do we support them if our only way of doing church has been 10:30 on a Sunday morning. Maybe it's church that needs to be reviewed rather than the other way round. So I would say just try to gain an increased understanding and open up the doors for opportunities to pray for people who are involved in nighttime economy.
We've talked a lot about, I guess, planting the seeds of faith in people's lives, but as you've just said, there are many Christians already who just need actually that nourishment and that ongoing learning and support. They're not brand new Christians.
No, absolutely. I know people in all sorts of industries, whether they're in a show at a theatre, so they work every single night, and or say whether they're DJs or, you say, NHS and delivering babies at 4 a.m. or whatever.
Thank goodness they're there.
Thank goodness they're there. And they need to be equipped as Christians to be salt and light where they are. And so I think we need to rethink, how do we feed and support people in that industry, because I don't think the answer is taking all the Christians out of the industry. They need to be in there, because God is doing so much. But maybe little prayer support groups can be set up for them, or we've found with our DJs that we set up an online support group for Christians who are DJs or producers or in the music industry, and they have found it so beneficial. It's like, oh, finally I found people that understand, that they get it. So they're swapping prayer requests all the time. They go into each other's gigs to support each other. So whatever network you might find, if you're someone that works in that industry, whatever network you find yourself in, get other people around you to pray and support you. And if you don't work in the nighttime economy but you're a Christian, you're involved in a church, find ways to support those who do, because they desperately need that support.
So we have learnt today that Jesus is most definitely a part of the nighttime economy. You've been listening to Life Issues on UCB, where you can always listen again via the UCB Player app. My thanks to Carolyn Skinner and Ellie Barrett as well, both from Third Space Ministries. Thank you for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you.
And the next time you reach perhaps for that light switch as you head off into your sweet dreams, don't forget how Jesus is meeting others as perhaps they're starting their day to serve him.